5,000 cities have risen across human history. Many became powerful. Some became rich. A few became legendary. But only a handful became something greater, a city that shaped the world itself. This is the story of London, a city that has burned, collapsed, rebuilt itself, and risen again. Again and again for nearly 2,000 years. Today, London is one of the most powerful cities on earth, a financial capital, a cultural center, a global crossroads where languages, ideas, and power converge. But London did not begin as a world capital. It began as a muddy river crossing at the edge of the known world. To understand London, we must travel back nearly 2,000 years to the moment when an empire arrived. The year is 43 AD. Across the cold waters of the English Channel, ships of the Roman Empire approach the island of Britain. At their head is the Roman Emperor Claudius. Determined to expand Rome's power beyond the edge of Europe, Britain, to the Romans, is a distant and mysterious land, a place of forests, tribal kingdoms, and warriors painted in blue. Yet Rome does what Rome always does. It conquers. Roman legions march inland, building roads, forts, and settlements as they advance. And along the banks of a wide river called the Thames, they establish a small trading outpost. They call it Londinium. At first, Londinium is nothing more than a wooden bridge and a cluster of buildings. But the location is perfect. The Thames allows ships to travel deep inland, connecting Britain with the trade networks of the Roman world. Within a few decades, Londinium begins to grow. Merchants arrive. Warehouses rise. Markets appear. Goods from across the empire pass through the small riverside town. Wine from Gaul, olive oil from Spain, pottery from Italy. But the early city faces danger almost immediately. In 60 AD, a rebellion erupts across Roman Britain. Leading the revolt is a warrior queen named Boudica. Her army sweeps across the province, destroying Roman settlements. And Londinium stands directly in their path. Roman officials realize they cannot defend the town. They abandon it. Soon after, Boudica's forces arrive. The city is burned. Archaeologists today have found a thick layer of ash buried beneath modern London, physical evidence of that destruction. But Rome does not abandon its city so easily. The Romans rebuild Londinium, and this time they build it bigger. By the 2nd century, Londinium has become one of the largest cities in Roman Britain. Stone buildings replace wooden ones. Public baths, temples, and markets appear. A massive forum, the center of civic life, dominates the city, and defensive walls nearly 3 kilometers long are constructed to protect it. The city becomes a major commercial hub. Ships move constantly along the Thames. Roman roads connect Londinium to every corner of the province. At its peak, the population may have reached 60,000 people, enormous for the ancient world. Londinium has become a true Roman city, yet the Roman Empire itself is beginning to change. Far away in Europe, pressures are building, and in the coming centuries those pressures will reach Britain. By the early 400s AD, the Roman Empire is struggling to defend its vast borders. Barbarian invasions threaten the heart of the empire. Rome needs its soldiers elsewhere, and so Roman legions leave Britain. Without Roman protection, Londinium begins to decline. Buildings fall into disrepair. Trade slows. Many residents abandon the city entirely. Within a century, the once busy Roman capital becomes a quiet place of crumbling stone. Grass grows between the Stripley's collapse. The great Roman city fades into memory, but London's story is far from over, because new people are arriving, and they will build a new city on the ruins of the old one. When the Roman Empire left Britain in the early 5th century, it did not leave behind a stable kingdom. It left a vacuum. Without Roman soldiers, the island that Rome had ruled for nearly 4 centuries began to fragment. Cities declined, trade networks collapsed, and the once busy streets of Londinium slowly fell silent. The massive stone walls still stood. The roads still crossed the river. But the people were leaving for a time. It seemed as if London might disappear entirely. Yet history rarely leaves such strategic places empty for long. Because across the North Sea, new peoples were already on the move. Beginning in the 5th century, Germanic tribes from northern Europe began migrating to Britain. They were known collectively as the Anglo-Saxons. These groups, including the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, gradually settled across much of the island. Unlike the Romans, they did not initially rebuild the old city of Londinium. Instead, they created a new settlement slightly to the west along the Thames. This new town became known as Londonwich. It was not a Roman-style city of stone temples and forums. It was a bustling trading port. Wooden houses lined muddy streets. Markets filled with merchants selling cloth, pottery, livestock, and imported goods from across northern Europe. Ships arrived regularly along the Thames. Trade with the Frankish kingdoms and Scandinavia flourished. Within a few generations, Londonwich became one of the most important commercial centers in early medieval England. But prosperity often attracts danger, and soon a new threat appeared on the horizon. Beginning in the late 8th century, Northern Europe entered what historians now call the Viking Age. Warriors from Scandinavia, known as Vikings, began launching raids across Europe. They struck monasteries, they attacked coastal towns, and they sailed deep inland along rivers. England became one of their primary targets. The Thames River provided the perfect route for Viking ships. Fast, shallow, and capable of carrying warriors directly into the heart of the country. London, sitting along that river, became vulnerable. In 842 AD, Viking raiders attacked the city. The settlement was plundered. Buildings were burned. Trade collapsed. Once again, London seemed on the edge of abandonment. But history was about to change direction because a powerful new king was rising in England. In the late 9th century, the Kingdom of Wessex faced constant Viking invasion. Leading the defense of the Anglo-Saxon world was a ruler who would become one of England's most important historical figures, Alfred the Great. Alfred did something many rulers failed to do. He adapted. Instead of simply fighting Viking armies in open battle, Alfred reorganized his kingdom. He built fortified towns called burhs. He strengthened defenses, and he developed a navy to challenge Viking ships. In 886 AD, Alfred captured London from Viking control. But rather than rebuilding the exposed trading town of Londonwich, Alfred made a strategic decision. He restored the old Roman city inside its massive stone walls. The ancient ruins of Londinium were repaired, the streets were repopulated, defenses were strengthened, and London once again became a fortified city. This moment marked the true rebirth of London. The city was now not just a trading settlement. It was becoming a political and economic center. Over the next centuries, London would grow steadily in importance. Kings would rule from nearby, merchants would enrich the city, and London would slowly transform into the beating heart of England. But its greatest transformation was still ahead. Because in the year 1066, an invasion would reshape not only England, but the future of London itself, and it would come from across the English Channel, led by a man who history remembers as William the Conqueror. By the middle of the 11th century, London had already survived the collapse of the Roman Empire, Viking raids, and centuries of rebuilding. It had grown into the most important city in England. But its greatest turning point was about to arrive, and it would come from across the sea. The year is 1066, one of the most famous years in European history. The English throne has become contested after the death of King Edward the Confessor. Several rulers claim the crown, but the most determined challenger is a powerful Norman duke from northern France, William the Conqueror. In September of 1066, William launches an invasion across the English Channel. His army lands on the southern coast of England. Soon after, one of the most decisive battles in medieval history takes place, the Battle of Hastings. The English king, Harold Godwinson, is defeated. England has fallen. But one major city still remains outside Norman control: London. After the victory at Hastings, William begins marching toward London. The city is wealthy, strategic, and politically powerful. Whoever controls London controls England. But London does not immediately surrender. The city's leaders hesitate. They consider resistance. For a moment, it seems as if London might become the center of a new rebellion. William responds with strategy rather than direct assault. Instead of attacking the city walls, he marches around London. Villages are burned, supplies are cut. The message is clear: resistance will bring destruction. Eventually, London's leaders accept the inevitable. In December of 1066, William is crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey. A new era begins. William understood something important about power. If you want to rule a city, you must control it physically. And so he begins building one of the most famous fortresses in the world, the Tower of London. Constructed along the River Thames, the fortress is designed to dominate the city. Its massive stone walls symbolize Norman authority. At its center rises the White Tower, an enormous keep that would stand as a reminder of royal power for centuries. The tower would serve many roles throughout history: a fortress, a royal palace, a prison, a treasury, and eventually one of the most famous landmarks in Britain. But the Normans did more than build castles. They transformed the structure of English society, and London would benefit from those changes. Over the next 2 centuries, London grows rapidly. Trade expands. Guilds form. Markets flourish. The River Thames becomes the lifeline of the city. Ships arrive from across Europe bringing goods and merchants, wine from France, spices from the Mediterranean, wool from English countryside. London's population grows. By the 13th century, it may have reached 80,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in Europe. New landmarks appear across the city. Markets such as Smithfield Market become major centers of commerce. Bridges and stone buildings replace earlier wooden structures, and London becomes a center of political influence. English kings increasingly rely on the wealth and support of the city, but medieval London is not always prosperous. Life inside the crowded streets can be dangerous. Disease spreads easily. Fire is a constant threat. And in the 14th century, the city faces one of the greatest disasters in human history, the Black Death. When the plague arrives in England in 1348, it devastates London. Thousands die. Entire neighborhoods fall silent. The population collapses. But once again, London survives, because throughout its history, the city has shown an extraordinary ability to recover. And after the medieval period ends, London will enter an era that will transform it from a powerful city into the center of a global empire. But before that transformation happens, the city will face its most destructive disaster. A fire so massive that it will nearly destroy London completely. The year will be 1666, and history will remember it as the Great Fire of London. By the 17th century, London had become one of the largest cities in Europe. Its streets were crowded, Its markets were busy, ships filled the River Thames, but beneath the city's prosperity lay a hidden danger. Most of London was still built from wood. Narrow streets packed houses tightly together, open flames burned in thousands of homes and workshops. All it would take was one spark, and in the year 1666, that spark arrived. On the night of September 2nd, 1666, a fire began in a bakery on Pudding Lane. At first, it seemed like an ordinary accident, but strong winds quickly spread the flames. Wooden houses ignited one after another. The fire raced through the city. Within hours, entire streets were burning. Citizens fled carrying what possessions they could. Smoke darkened the sky. Church bells rang as warnings across London. For 4 terrifying days, the fire continued spreading. The destruction was enormous. Nearly 13,000 houses were destroyed, hundreds of streets disappeared, and one of London's greatest buildings was lost. The magnificent St. Paul's Cathedral collapsed into flames. The medieval city of London had been reduced to ash. But this disaster would also create an opportunity, because the city would be rebuilt, and rebuilt stronger than before. After the fire, London faced a massive challenge. How do you rebuild an entire capital? Architects proposed bold new designs, wide streets, stone buildings, modern city planning. One of the most important figures in this rebuilding effort was the scientist and architect Christopher Wren. Wren designed a new St. Paul's Cathedral, far grander than the one destroyed by fire. Its enormous dome would become one of London's most recognizable landmarks. Stone and brick replaced wood across much of the city. New building regulations reduced the risk of future fires, and slowly London rose again. But something else was happening during this period, something that would transform London into the center of global power. An empire was expanding. By the 18th and 19th centuries, Britain had become one of the most powerful nations in the world. Its ships traveled across oceans, its merchants traded across continents. And at the center of this vast network stood London. During the height of the British Empire, London became the largest and most powerful city on Earth. Goods from every corner of the planet flowed into its ports. Tea from India, spices from Asia, cotton from America, gold from Africa. Banks, trading companies, and financial institutions filled the city. London became the financial heart of the world. The population exploded. By the mid-1800s, London had become the first city in history to reach 1 million people. Soon it would reach 6 million. New infrastructure transformed the city. Railways connected distant neighborhoods. Bridges crossed the Thames, and beneath the streets, something revolutionary was built, the world's first underground railway, the London Underground. But despite its immense power and wealth, the 20th century would test London in ways it had never experienced before, because modern warfare was coming, and the city would soon find itself under attack from the sky. In the early 20th century, Europe was moving toward conflict. Empires competed, nations armed themselves, and soon the world would enter a period of war unlike anything seen before. London, the capital of a global empire, would become one of the most important cities in that conflict. But the greatest test for the city would come during the Second World War, when enemy aircraft would appear above the city, and bombs would begin to fall. History remembers this moment as the Blitz, and it would test London's resilience once again. By the early 20th century, London had become the heart of a global empire. Its ports connected continents. Its banks financed industries across the world. Its population had grown into the millions. But with power comes vulnerability, and soon London would face one of the darkest moments in its history. In 1939, Europe once again descended into war. Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, launched a campaign of conquest across the continent. By 1940, much of Europe had fallen. Britain stood alone, and London became the primary target. German bombers began flying across the English Channel. Their objective was simple: break Britain's morale by destroying its capital. What followed became one of the most famous bombing campaigns in history, the Blitz. For months, London endured relentless air raids. Bombs fell across the city night after night. Factories were destroyed. Homes were flattened. Entire neighborhoods burned. The sky glowed red from fire. Thousands of civilians lost their lives. Yet the people of London refused to abandon their city. Families slept in underground stations. Children were evacuated to the countryside. Firefighters battled flames across the city, and each morning, London continued to function. Buses ran, shops opened, workers returned to their jobs. The city refused to collapse. This resilience became known as the Blitz spirit, and once again, London survived. When the war finally ended in 1945, London faced enormous damage. Thousands of buildings had been destroyed. Large parts of the city needed rebuilding. But London had already rebuilt itself many times before, after Roman collapse, after Viking attacks, after medieval disasters, after the Great Fire, and now after World War. New housing developments appeared. Modern skyscrapers slowly joined historic buildings. Infrastructure expanded. London transformed into a modern metropolis. Yet it also preserved its deep history. Ancient landmarks still stood across the city. The Tower of London, the Great Dome of St. Paul's Cathedral, and the historic halls of Westminster Abbey. These structures remind the world that London is not simply a modern city. It is a living timeline. Today, London is one of the most influential cities on Earth. More than 9 million people live within its boundaries. Hundreds of languages are spoken across its neighborhoods. Its financial district shapes global markets. Its universities attract students from every continent. Its museums preserve the story of human civilization. And its skyline continues to evolve. Modern towers rise beside medieval streets. Glass skyscrapers reflect centuries-old churches. The city never stops changing. Yet at its core, London remains defined by one quality above all: resilience. Across nearly 2,000 years, London has faced destruction again and again. Roman collapse, Viking invasions, medieval plagues, the Great Fire, world wars. Each time, the city could have disappeared. Many ancient cities did, but London rebuilt itself every time, stronger, larger, more powerful. This is why London is not just a city. It is a survivor, a place where history is layered beneath every street, where the past and present exist side by side, and where the story of human civilization can still be seen in stone, steel, and memory. If you stand today on the banks of the River Thames and watch the lights of the city reflect on the water, you are looking at more than a modern capital. You are looking at the result of nearly 2,000 years of history, a city born from Roman ambition, shaped by medieval merchants, forged by empire, tested by war, and rebuilt by generations who refused to let it disappear. London's story is not simply about power, it is about survival. And like the river that runs through it, its history never truly stops flowing.